I will fight till the end. Doesn't matter what the world brings against me. I will fight.
Good afternoon and welcome to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase, our weekly call-in town hall and radio show on WNTW 820 AM The Answer. I'm Senator Amanda Chase, your weekly radio show and Virginia State Senator serving the counties of Amelia, Colonial Heights, and most of Chesterfield. And can I just tell you, it's such an honor to serve you. For those of you who voted for me, thank you. My heart of hearts is to be a stateswoman that listens to constituents and truly represents the voice of the people in the 11th District. This weekly call-in town hall is for you. As always, I also want to thank WNTW 820 AM for the opportunity to provide this free public service to you and hope that you find it helpful in finding out what's really going on in Richmond as we cut to the chase each week. As we mentioned last week, the 2017 General Assembly session begins this coming Wednesday, January the 11th at noon, and this is going to be my second session. I'm just 1 year into my first 4-year term. This year's session will last 45 days, which is considered a short session. Last year was the long session when we had the budget, and that was 60 days. We're going to review thousands of pieces of legislation. Well, as many of you know, our hours are not going to be 8 to 5. In fact, most days our meetings begin at 7:30 in the morning, and we're busy working until late into the night. Yet, we still want to continue this show through sessions so that you can get weekly updates and find out the latest, what's going on in the General Assembly. So that said, I've asked several colleagues and dear friends to fill in for me so that we can continue our weekly town hall and radio show, and I'm very excited. Former Delegate Chris Saxman, who's also here in the Chester studio today, is here. Thanks for being here today, Chris.
Always a pleasure, Senator Amanda Chase.
No facetious cynicism in that at all.
At all.
You know your good friends win. And Martha Boneta, great friend, super. I can't say enough good things about Martha, but I am later when I go into her bio, and I'm going to have fun. I love that she's here today. And these two are going to co-host the show while I'm out of session. I'll probably be in committee meetings or that type of thing. So thanks to both of you for filling in for me beginning next week. And you guys are going to do a great job. And you guys are going to want to tune in every Thursday from 4 to 5 to listen to Chris and Martha. And they're going to be talking about what's going on in the General Assembly, hot topics, hot issues that are coming up, things that are going in the Trump administration as well. Martha's got a lot of really interesting topics to come up. So you guys are going to want to stay tuned. So before we get started, I want to tell you, don't forget to call in. If you have a question about today's topic, I want to invite you to call in. This is a call-in show. So the number is 804-454-1366. And we're going to do our best, as always, to answer your call right on the show. So today we're going to get started. Last week we talked about the bills that I'm planning on introducing this upcoming session. And we went into quite a bit of detail. So if you want to go and catch all the detail on that, there's a full hour from last week. Go to my website, chaseforsenate.com, and take a listen to that. But today we're going to be discussing the 2017 legislative session. As we mentioned that this session, I'm going to be focused on a lot of reform bills, tax reform, election reform, regulatory reform, and transparency. Personally, I'm introducing legislation that focuses on tax reform, election reform, and transparency. We need to make Virginia more competitive and attracting businesses, large and small. How else are you going to get a job if there are no jobs here, right, Chris?
They can't beat that logic, Senator.
Absolutely.
The majority of small businesses fail in the first 5 years, and we need to find ways to improve those odds. As co-founder of the Transparency Caucus, I will also continue to look for ways to make government more transparent and accountable. And I will also work toward making sure that we veto bills that are not liberty-friendly. And speaking of liberty, in the studio today, the Queen of Liberty, Martha Boneta.
Lady Liberty.
That's right. Now, I know that many of you are maybe tuning in for the first time. I want to tell you about Martha. She is a full-time farmer on her family farm called Liberty Farm in Paris, Virginia. When not farming, Martha speaks all over the country on property rights, farming, environmental, and energy issues. We've known each other quite a while.
Yes, we have. I'm a huge fan of Senator Amanda Chase.
Well, I'm a huge fan of Martha Boneta, and I'm so excited that she's able to be with us today before they get started next week. She has an incredible story to share, and I'm going to ask her to share a little bit about that story. But she was simply minding her own business, farming in Virginia, when she received an alarming notice. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. I love Virginia with all my heart. I'm a native of Virginia, and it was my childhood dream to be a farmer. And I grew up in a family where my mom and dad said, if you work really hard, you can be anything you want in life. And I never dreamed that we would encounter miles and miles and miles of red tape, overregulation, and really the crushing blow when you're trying to start a small business, and family farmers are the heartbeat and backbone of America. It's hard work, and it's a labor of love. And to put so much love and hard work and money into building and creating this farm infrastructure, only to know firsthand the crushing blow when a small business is literally shut down. And that's what our family experienced. And I'm in a nutshell, I'm so grateful and blessed because it's really a story of the American dream. Thousands upon thousands of citizens across the Commonwealth rallied together. It really created a movement, a statewide movement, a national movement. And I'm incredibly grateful also to the legislators of the General Assembly. We are so blessed in Virginia. This is a right to farm state. Agriculture is our number one industry. It produces over 400,000 jobs, pumps over $52 billion into our economy. I think it might even be more than that. Yes. And so, agriculture is really near and dear to us. And we're very blessed in Virginia to have such a thriving, robust agricultural industry. And I'm just so grateful to the General Assembly, to you, Amanda Chase, because you co-patron these bills, to pass legislation to allow for small businesses that are small family farmers in the Commonwealth to not be overregulated, and to really allow for untold opportunity so that, farmers can farm without fear, not knowing when the localities would change the regulations regarding what they can do on their farms. And so knowing firsthand what it's like to battle and try to create a thriving, prosperous, entrepreneurial small business. Mine just happened to be in agriculture and farming. I am very passionate about carrying the torch for liberty and encouraging the community, the citizenry, to not only be active, but to lift up legislators that really believe in those values and supporting the American dream and allowing for more opportunity and less government, less regulation.
Now, your story has a very happy ending, and everybody likes happy endings.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about, you received this notice that basically they wanted to shut down your farm. Simply
Absolutely.
because you were trying to start a business.
Correct.
And you fought the
We
localities
We did.
that were trying to burn you.
Yes.
And
Crush us. I mean, pound us to dust. I mean,
it's sad.
It's pound us to dust.
And you think, who would do that?
Exactly.
But
And
it happens.
it does. And
But you won.
we did, but I'll tell you, it took, and people ask me, how did you have the strength to do it? My faith in God, my family, my friends, and my love for our country, and my love for, this is the country of the American dream, and this is the Commonwealth of opportunity. And I didn't want any other family or individual to go through what my family went through. 10 years. It was 10 years. 10 years from the time it started till it ended. And so, I know what that crushing blow is like. And, here we are in Virginia in terms of our ratings. I understand that we have dropped in terms of our employment and opportunity in terms of our national ratings right now.
That's right.
And when I hear the stories of folks all across the Commonwealth saying, get out of our way and let us work. We just want to work hard. And I know that feeling. We just wanted to work hard. I wanted to grow the best tomatoes in Virginia. Now, my friends in Hanover tell me that they grow the best tomatoes in Virginia. But so one of these days we're going to have a tomato taste off. But that's all we wanted to do, grow the best vegetables we could, open up our farm to the community so they can experience a small working farm. And instead of embracing that entrepreneurial spirit and that love of Virginia agriculture, they wanted to crush us and pound us into dust. And it was devastating. And I hope my story inspires other people to not give up.
And Martha's story has made national and international news. She's appeared several times on Fox and Friends, Neil Cavuto, Greta Van Sutton's On the Record, The John Stossel Show, PBS, as well as several other news and radio shows. Martha speaks all over the country on property rights, farming, environmental issues, and energy issues, and is a regular on regional and national radio and TV shows. Martha, it's such an honor to have you on the show today. And
Thank you.
Chris, also my very dear friend, is also not only a former state delegate, he is the current executive director of Virginia Free,
That's right.
but you also have a background with business and your
No, strong
family
family
owned
business. Family business in
water
Stanton.
bottling.
I grew up in the bottled water business and working alongside my mother, my father, my wife, and 50 dedicated employees. We fought the good fight, not just to grow the economy and have a thriving business, but also give benefits and higher wages to our employees. We were very proud of the product we put out in the marketplace. It was exciting and a wonderful time.
Well, today is going to be a really great show because I'm going to have these folks on the show today commenting, making suggestions. We're going to be talking about bills that I'll be introducing. We'll be talking about bills that are coming before the General Assembly. It's going to be a lot of fun today, so you're going to stay tuned. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Well, welcome back to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase and Chris Saxman, former delegate,
Thank you for saying that.
executive director of Virginia Free, and Martha Boneta, who I have a whole list of wonderful accomplishments here. The Boneta Bill 1 and 2. Martha's the subject of a documentary film, Farming in Fear, and that received the People's Choice Award at the Anthem Film Festival and is now screened in universities across the nation. So a lot of people are asking me, so Amanda, what legislation are you introducing this session, and what are you going to be doing over the next 45 days? I do have 4 committee assignments. I'm sitting on Health and Education. I sit on 2 subcommittees under Health and Education, COPN and Higher Education. Also, the Transportation Committee, Local Governments, Privileges, and Elections. I also sit on 4 commissions, and session begins the second Wednesday of every January. This year, as we mentioned earlier, it's January the 11th, next Wednesday at noon. And the last day of session is Saturday, February 25th, hopefully. So the first bill that I want to talk about is Senate Bill 791, the clerk fees for concealed carry permit. Fees for concealed handgun permits. It makes the $10 fee that the clerk of the court is now required to charge for processing a concealed handgun permit application or issuing a concealed handgun permit discretionary with the clerk. And I believe we still have, is Corey still on the line? Is this Corey still on the line?
Amanda, this is Corey Stewart.
Corey Stewart, it is so good to have you on. Let me tell you a little bit about Corey. Corey is not only on the Board of Supervisors in Prince William County, but he is also a candidate for governor, running out for the Republican ticket. Is that not correct?
That's right. That's right. We, as you know, I was in charge of Trump's campaign here in Virginia for most of last year, and then I'm chairman of the Board of Supervisors in Prince William County, the second largest county in the state.
Now, Corey, you asked me to carry this bill for you. And so I want to give you the opportunity to tell me about the bill. We actually introduced this last session, and it was actually pretty successful. We got it all the way through the Senate, even through Senate Finance, which I know many of you are like, what are you talking about? I'll just tell you, it was a big deal to get it through Senate Finance. We got it through crossover, and it didn't die in subcommittee. It was called gently laid on the table. So why don't you tell folks what this bill does, and why you're advocating for it?
Well, Amanda, I just don't think it's right that people have to pay to exercise their Second Amendment rights or any other rights under the Constitution. And in Prince William County, we were the first to eliminate the fee for concealed carry in Virginia. But there was this $15 that was left over that the state currently mandates that localities charge, whether or not we want to. And so what this would do would allow Prince William County and other localities across the state to completely get rid of the concealed carry permit fee in total. We reduced it from $50 in Prince William County all the way down to $15, and we would like to get rid of the additional $15.
Yeah, well, I'm all for that, and that is the very reason that I agreed to sponsor this bill last year, and we had tremendous support from VCDL and the NRA, groups are especially behind that this year. We're also looking at introducing another bill that Scott Lingenfelter is putting in. We're going to put both bills in and see which one comes out the best. His would actually max the fee out at $15. This bill would take it to $40. It basically gives the clerks of the circuit court the option to waive that $10 fee of the $50 or not. It's their discretion, and that's why in the Senate there was no fiscal impact put to that. But I guess it depends on how you look at it. I don't think the clerks initially supported that bill, but I think we're going to have support this year. So I'm very optimistic, Corey, that this bill is going to get through. Thanks so much for bringing this to my attention and allowing me to carry this bill. So I appreciate that.
Well, it's my pleasure. I think that the localities will have a choice. We had to work with the clerk's office and with the sheriff's office to find the funding that they were going to be missing out on as a result of not being able to charge the fee. And because there is some cost to them to process the permits. But why should citizens have to pay to exercise their rights? This is not a service that the county government or the state government is providing to residents, to citizens of Virginia. This is a regulation that we're placing on people's Second Amendment rights, and there's no reason that we should charge people to exercise those rights.
Is this a one-time fee, Corey? Hi, this is Chris Saxman. Is this a one-time fee?
Well, no, it's
annual?
It's a fee every time you go to obtain your concealed carry right.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Corey, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. It's great to be on your show, Amanda.
Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And now understand we have James from Sterling, Virginia, who has a question about gun rights today.
Well, there you go.
James, thanks. Are you there?
The reach of the Chase Network.
Yes.
James,
how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for taking time to call in. Tell us your question.
You may have remembered I was with you at the RPV up at in Omni at Richmond, and Martha Boneta is fantastic, and I just want to say I love the fact that you're bringing up the gun rights. I actually have a gun booth at the National Gun Show every 2 months, and I've worked with Gary Clemens, the clerk here in Leesburg, and one of the things he had mentioned to me was they were trying to push for a permanent license for concealed carry, so you don't have to keep on going in and renewing it. And I was wondering what your feeling is on that, because just like a notary, you have to keep going in every 5 years, and it's cumbersome to do that. I don't really care if I pay $50, but I just want to be able to have the license and not worry about having to go back in and go through all the paperwork and background checks. And then also national reciprocity is very important. You know, when you go to different states, do you think there's any chance that we could push that through on a federal level?
Well, I am a huge Second Amendment's right person who would agree with you on many of those issues. And while I know that it's not coming before the General Assembly this year, it's something that we could take a look at out of session for the upcoming year. So maybe if you could hold on the line, I'm going to have someone to get your contact information, and we'll follow up with you and see what we can do.
Pretty good idea to have an automatic renewal, or just release the time frame of the permit.
I'm wondering how many folks.
Right. Anything that could streamline the process would actually be cost effective for the clerk as well as for the people involved. So I would really appreciate that. And sure, if you could get that information, I just wish you well, and I'm so happy that we're going to the inauguration on the 20th, and look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, James.
I wish I
Take
could
care.
go to the inauguration. I'm going to actually be in session. So I will live vicariously through you all. So anyway, so great. Thanks so much, James, for making those comments. And like I said, we do have this gun bill in this session. We had a couple last year. I was also a part of the restoring of the reciprocity of the gun rights. Last year, it was a bipartisan effort by Republicans and Democrats. And so the governor saw our way, and he actually signed the bill into law. I'm very excited about that, and I'm very optimistic about this coming session with some other bills that we have coming up that we'll need bipartisan support on. We're going to talk about a couple business bills when we come back, and hopefully we'll get to election reform. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thanks so much.
I will fight till the end. Doesn't matter what the world means against
Welcome back
me.
to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase. And I want to thank you all for calling in. It sounds like I had some type of microphone issue, so I'm hoping that we have that worked out by now. But what we want to talk about right now is Senate Bill 835, which I'm the chief co-patron for. It's a corporate income tax reduction. Our current Virginia income tax is currently at 6%, and I want to take it all the way to 2.5%. Now, Chris, don't pass out over there.
Why would I pass out? What is that? What are you looking at me for?
I know it's got a huge fiscal impact to
What's
that.
the fiscal impact?
Well, we don't know until we get the numbers back from Senate Finance.
Well, how do you know it's huge then? It might not be that big.
It is probably going to be huge, but I am hoping that the growth is going to offset it, and we have to beat North Carolina.
Well, that's a better argument to make. If you're
Because
trying to compete
North
with
Carolina will
that's-
be at 3% next
Really?
year. 3% next year. So if we have corporations along the West Coast, let's say, and they're looking to come to the East Coast, I want them to look at Virginia and say, hey, Virginia has 2.5% corporate income tax. I want to come there to Virginia and open my business there. I want to open my corporation. And why do we want corporations in Virginia? Because what does that mean? Jobs.
Jobs.
And a
Good
lot
paying
of
jobs.
good paying jobs. That's exactly right.
And
that's
remember,
what we need.
for those members of your audience,
Yes.
a tax has to be applied to a tax liability. It's not just revenue. It's not just what a company brings in revenue. Income is different than revenue. And this is an enticement to bring companies here to create jobs, not for the sake of creating jobs, but to help their businesses.
That's
so
exactly
ultimately,
right.
they want to make money. And when they make money, that's when they have a tax liability.
That's exactly right.
But you're trying to take their liability from a 6% rate to a 2.5% rate.
That's exactly right. And you know, that's a good segue into the next reform that we have here, Senate Bill 836, which is a bill I'm introducing that's going to basically reform the way that we calculate the B-poll tax. As we talked about last week, it's an onerous tax that business owners hate paying. And it's the way it's calculated that really bothers me, because it's a gross receipts tax.
Which is revenue, not income.
That's exactly right.
Thank you for playing.
So if you have a company that sells refrigerators and a company that sells pencils, which one is probably going to have more gross receipts?
Depends how many you sell and what the price is.
Very good.
Thank you.
What if you sold the same number?
Depends upon the price.
Assuming the refrigerator is $800.
Oh, well, then that's different.
And the pencils are probably like $1 maybe.
Where are you buying your pencils?
For a whole box.
Oh, well, that's different.
Yeah.
Then it's different.
So what we're saying is gross receipts is the amount of money you take in. You're going to take in more money if you're selling refrigerators, typically.
This is gross.
That's exactly right.
Not the net.
That's exactly right. Net takes into account your expenses. And this bill makes sure that whenever we're calculating B-poll, that we take into account gross income, your net, in other words, not your gross. So
but does it prevent localities from adjusting their rates?
No, it doesn't prevent them from doing that.
Okay. Well, then, so the person might not pay the corporation, the entity, the LLC might not pay less in taxes. It just won't be on the gross receipts.
That's right.
Okay.
Because we don't want to penalize the localities. That is not the goal of this bill. The localities still need to operate.
It's a very important bill you're putting
Yes.
in, because most of the time legislators put in bills that just get rid of B-poll.
Right, and that's not what this bill does.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
So the other bill that we have to help small business owners is Senate Bill 849. It's an individual tax waiver for the first 5 years that you have a business. In your small business, unless you're making, if you're making $100,000 or less profit, we're going to waive your individual income tax for the first 5 years as an incentive to keep working, keep striving, keep working hard. You know, anything we can to do to help the small business owner. Now, there are a number of other bills that I'm co-patroning with Senator Sturdivant, accelerated sales tax. We're looking to there are a bunch of
What
different
about the
things.
accelerated sales tax?
We're talking about eliminating that.
I put a constitutional amendment in after that was first tried in 2001, 2002.
Very good.
It's a very important issue. It just
Yes.
won't go away. So
Absolutely.
I applaud your efforts to get that horrible policy.
Absolutely.
It's a bad drug that was brought on a long time ago. We need to get rid of that.
Absolutely. So now we're going to talk about election reform. We're going to talk about, I actually met with Heather Sullivan from Channel 12 today, and she was very fascinated about this next bill, and I hope you will be too. It's Senate Bill 837. And what this does is it looks at the way we calculate in Virginia our electoral votes. Now, as it stands right now, in this last election with Hillary Clinton, she won 49.75% of the vote, the popular vote. So she won the election, but it was a winner take all. So she won all of the electoral votes. Do we want this to happen in Virginia? Were you happy on election night? Let's talk about that when we come back.
Careful what you wish for.
Let's talk about it when we come back. I can't wait to talk about it. So no one really pays attention to the Electoral College until a presidential election year. But this year was like no other. That's exactly right. Most people who cast their ballot on election day believe in concept that when they are actually casting a direct vote for president and vice president, but if you paid attention in your government class, you may remember that you're actually voting for a slate of electors who actually cast the vote for president and vice president. Now, I know that Martha paid attention to class.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure Chris did too. But Virginia gets 13 electoral votes, one for each of our 11 congressional districts, which are based on population, by the way, and 2 electoral votes for each of our Senate seats. Under the current method in Virginia, this is what I really want people to understand here. Whoever wins the popular vote statewide wins all 13 of Virginia's electoral votes. It's a winner-takes-all method. And I question, is this the best way to allocate our votes? Instead of winner take all, I'm suggesting a method that I believe is more representative of Virginia as a whole. And I just want to give you an example of how this would work in the past election. Clinton won 49.7% of the popular vote, but 100% of the electoral votes. Is that representative? I don't think so. I don't think the current method properly expresses the intent of Virginia voters. Because if you think about it, under the split vote, which I'm supposing that we go with, Clinton would have gotten 54% of the vote to Trump 46% of the vote under the current method. Let me explain this to you. So Hillary Clinton got 1.9 million votes. I'm going to round it. Donald Trump got 1.7 million votes. And whenever we're calculating based on this new system, we're looking at congressional districts. So what would happen, instead of Hillary Clinton winning all 13 of Virginia's votes, instead she would be awarded 5 for winning 5 congressional districts, meaning 3, 4, 8, 10, and 11, and 2 more for getting the highest statewide vote total, while Donald Trump would win 6 for congressional districts, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 9. So I know you're cut to the chase. Current system under 2016 presidential election, Clinton would get 7 of the 13 electoral votes. Trump would get 6. Does that make sense? So we still get 13. It's a split vote. When I calculated the percentages today, I came up with the popular vote, she had 49.75% of the vote. Clinton would end up basically with 54% of the votes under this new system, but Trump would get 40%, 46% of the vote as well. So it's more representative than what we have right now. Now, a lot of people have asked me, why don't we go to a popular vote purely? We do not want to do that. We don't want to do that. And why is that? Because we need to ensure that the Electoral College in itself, the purpose is to ensure that smaller states and localities are not ignored or sidelined. We must preserve the Electoral College, but we can modify it so that it's not the winner take all in Virginia. So I'm interested. Do y'all have any thoughts or questions, or you think it's a good idea, or go for it?
I always question when one state starts to create a solution for a problem if I don't necessarily know that it exists in the context of other states not doing the same thing. And not that this is a bad one, but other states would do the same thing for different reasons. And I think the founders framed it in the manner in which they did to create the outcome that they wanted to create, which was a compromise. Otherwise, the nation would never have come together. Let's be honest. That's why it was instituted. So when we start dissembling this, I get a little. I'm a traditionalist. I get a little concerned. Not that it's a bad.
You're not establishment, though.
No, people like you are, and they try to jerry-rig the system like this. Just kidding. Just kidding. It's a constant banter between us. So, I mean, it's a reaction. I don't know if it's – I'm just very cautious when you go into the structure of government and you start changing it.
Well, the only thing that we're not changing the popular vote.
No, I understand.
I mean,
I understand what you're doing, but when it's always in the context of a reaction to an election, I get a little long-sighted when people are getting – I'm not going to refer to this as being short-sighted.
That's a good point.
But it's reactional to what just happened. And on these matters, I tend to reflect and want to take more time.
Well, let me just challenge you on that, because actually back in 2002, a House Democrat introduced this bill. In 2003,
who was that person?
It was Delegate Kristen Amundsen.
Amundsen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amundsen. Okay. 2003, it was introduced by a House Democrat. 2003, three different Democrats actually introduced this.
Because they might be still in the
Delegate Brink, Delegate Scott.
Okay. Well, Delegate Brink is now a legislative advisor to the governor.
Right. And then Delegate Vivian Watts in 2012.
Wow.
Republicans in 2013, Senator Bill Carrico introduced this bill, and it was supported by Senators Reeves, Martin, and Ruff. So it actually does have a history that's out there. This is not something new that I've just come up with.
That's much better context.
Yes,
especially
absolutely.
for your viewers and your constituents.
And this isn't precedent setting. There's other
two other states
across the nation. Which states are they?
So Nebraska and Maine.
Maine, yeah. And it's really important from your representation standpoint and making them important, because the Donald Trump campaign went to Maine 2, the second congressional district of Maine, to try to win that electoral vote.
That's
and I think
exactly
they did.
Right.
I think they did.
But
also, doesn't Iowa do this as well?
Iowa does not.
Okay.
Iowa does not.
I thought they did.
But, it's just interesting. I try to follow the history of some of these bills. This was actually a bill that was brought to it wasn't a bill. The bill was introduced because of a suggestion by a constituent when I started doing my research, because initially they were like, why don't we do the popular vote? And I looked into that. I was like, oh, that's not a good idea, actually. When you look at what would happen if we just went based on the popular vote? You would have all these candidates that were merely campaigning in large cities and in large counties. And, what would their issues cater to? Those larger urban areas. And for, what about farmers like Martha? Are they going to take her into effect? Probably not, because they're not going to be able to earn her vote. So I think that is a really, I appreciate you guys offering your suggestions or support on that. The other one that we have, and I don't know if we're going to have time to go on it today, because I think we've only got a few more. We have like 30 seconds, okay? So tune in next week, same time, same place, thanks to Martha and thanks to Chris. And we are going to talk about these bills that maybe I didn't get to introduce. Maybe they'll have an opportunity to talk to you about them. So stay tuned next week, AM 820 AM, WNTW. Welcome back to Cut to the Chase. You thought we were gone, but we realized we have 4 more minutes, and I'm really excited because it gives us time to cover Senate Bill 872, and this is a companion to Delegate Buddy Fowler's bill in the House. It is requiring, right now we have a voter ID law in place if you go to the polls and vote, but we have nothing for those who vote absentee. So our hope is that this is going to fix that. It requires any voter submitting an application for an absentee ballot by mail or by electronic or transmission or fax or to submit with their application a copy of one of the forms of identification acceptable under current law. The bill also requires any voter to submit a copy of such identification with his vetoed absentee ballot. The bill exempts military and overseas voters and persons with a disability from these requirements.
Why?
Well,
I
because
mean, military personnel have their IDs on them.
the way that the bill was written, we just decided to exempt the military, exempt voters with disability. There's some more obstacles in place that they may have to require, so we just exempted them for now. But my next bill raises the question. We've already talked about the conceal. Let's talk about the photo ID. You know, my daughter got her absentee voting. She's a college student. She got the form in the mail, filled it out. I was a little bit concerned that she didn't have to present some type of photo ID like the rest of us because, you know, I'm always looking for an opportunity. You know, where is the fraud here? I mean, there is a great potential for fraud here because you don't have to submit that picture ID. So I think it's important that we have this piece to kind of close the loop. Otherwise, what we can do is if we just continue with only voter ID in person, we're going to encourage people to vote in a different way, to vote absentee. And that's my concern, is that's where the fraud's going to take place. And we have kind of seen when we had the meeting, the joint session with Privileges and Elections in the House and the Senate. We had a joint meeting, and we had numerous registrars that came before us and just testified about all the issues they were having in Harrisonburg. We had folks that were being registered to vote that were no longer with us, and that's another reason that we're introducing.
They had passed away. They didn't move.
They passed away. Yes, they passed on.
I don't know if people saw that story or not.
So, anyway,
is that funny to you, Senator? I'm just kidding. Look at her, she froze.
he might not make it to the next show, but Martha will definitely be here. Oh my goodness.
We're having fun.
It's going to be fun. It's all good. You know what? I have 4 kids. Nothing phases me.
that just did.
So Senate Bill 871 is a third-party voter registration bill, and this is trying to solve that problem. Requires any individual or organization that's going to be distributing and collecting voter registration applications to register as a third-party registration group within the Department of Elections prior to engaging in any voter registration activities. The bill requires volunteers and employees of third-party registration groups. So stay tuned, and Chris and Martha are going to tell you all about it next week.
No, we're not.
Yes, you will.
Not that bill.
Martha will.
Okay.
If Chris makes it next week. Tune in next week.
See you
4
soon.
to 5.